Hello, everybody. I am going to be doing a book review on The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien right here. So, a big main topic about the book is the adventure that Bilbo is kind of, I won't necessarily forced into going to, but is kind of pushed throughout the story to keep moving on. And in the beginning of the book, we're introduced to Bilbo, which is a hobbit, and he lives in a nice, peaceful field in a nice small village with a nice house. Kind of a homebody, doesn't really like going on adventures that much. Um, and he's greeted by Gandalf. And Gandalf is a great wizard, and he is greeted by Gandalf, and then all of a sudden he brings in all of these dwarves, and they ask him to go on a quest with him. So as they're sitting and about to meet with Bilbo, they're porging through his house. They're going through everything and kind of making themselves at home. But the main character that is going to be mentioned throughout the book is going to be Bilbo. He is kind of the book is taking place through his eyes, so in first person to him. And sometimes the narrator will jump back out and kind of explain the situation and explain where they're at, but that's primarily who our main character is going to be, is Bilbo. Gandalf also, he always kind of pops in and out through the story through important times and other things like that. And then you have the main dwarf who's kind of created this plan with all the other dwarves for this adventure. His name is Thorin. Um, and Thorin has a group of dwarves that you'll also encounter throughout the story, and it's Fili, Kili, Dalwyn, Balin, Olin, Glowin, Ori, Dori, Nori, Bilif, Borif, Borbor, and that's that's kind of the list of the dwarves. You'll see a lot of Philly and Killy, and Balwin and Balin. All those other ones are kind of supporting characters, so they don't. They might be mentioned throughout the story, maybe, and kind of where they're at in their adventure and everything like that. But Gandalf, Bilbo, and Thorin are going to be um, your biggest characters, and this book was a really good book to read. I this the series of Lord of the Ring books and everything like that are kind of some of the only books that I've actually had a lot of liking to, that are that genre of the fiction, the magical fiction, and everything like that. So I think it was a really good book. It was very smooth. It went very well. Because honestly, a lot happens in this book right here. It's not a thick book, but even though that there's so much stuff going on, it's very easy to follow. Each of their adventures and each of the places that they go to is very easy to kind of understand what's going on in different situations. Like as they're starting out, so they go to Bilbo's house. They realized and they have a plan in place that they're going to go on this big adventure because the dwarves' place of living, which is this huge like castle built inside of the mountain with all this gold, and they were really good at being iron workers and everything like that. Well, their whole life and culture of being a dwarf was actually taken away from them by a dragon, and he really likes gold. So his whole castle was destroyed, and that's why they encountered Bilbo. Hobbits are known for being really good burglars. So Bilbo's kind of the hero in that sense because he was a really good burglar. And even though he didn't do a lot of burglaring, because obviously he lived in his little house, um, and he was a homebody, and he, haven't really been on adventures before, he really had to, come out of his shell. So first off, they go and they start, on horseback, and they start riding into the hills and everything like that. The first major situation that's going to really affect them and their journey is coming across a path of trolls. So they need food, and they send Bilbo to go try and pick food off these dwarves, or off the trolls. And he does so, and he tries to be quiet and everything like that. Trolls end up spotting him, and then trolls end up capturing everybody. Well, trolls can only be out at night. So if they go into the daylight, they're obviously going to turn into stone, or at least that's, what the book tells, that's what would happen. And of course, Gandalf, being the great wizard he of course shines his staff, which is a magical staff that he uses throughout the book, that to turn the trolls into stone. So that's a big first premise of kind of how you can see Gandalf's magic and how he helps with other people. So in that, though, in them coming across the trolls and finding a troll cave, they find a ton of stolen and captured stuff from the trolls. And that's when Bilbo gets his dagger, Thorin gets a sword, and Gandalf also grabs a sword. And they're all elf made. So a little bit of context into kind of what was mentioned throughout the book, but was kind of, which was kind of, mentioned in a sense, but wasn't really put in a lot of detail for it, was the Elf and Goblin War. So the elves declared war with the goblins, and the goblins and the elves fought a long time ago. This was a long time, so there's a lot of elf blades and everything like that were really well made and had some magic to them. And basically that's how they get these great swords, is because the trolls were capturing and looting and taking and everything of that nature. Another thing is another big situation right after the trolls is them climbing a mountain. So basically they're trying to get to the castle. They're going through. They had the encounter with the trolls. They were able to restock again and then continue on their adventure. They're climbing up a side of a mountain. There's lightning and rain. And here's where some magical kind of comes into play, because the way Thorin kind of described it was, the gods of thunder and everything like that were, mean and crackling and, fighting with each other. And they went into a cave. Well, it turns out that the cave that they went in to sleep into was kind of the doorstep of a huge underground goblin empire. So Bilbo was up. He saw that everyone was asleep and he was taking watch. Well, all of a sudden, this huge, kind of thundery sound came about, and then all these rocks eroded away behind him, and he found all these goblins. Well, the goblins captured all of them, and they don't like dwarves, or elves for that matter. So all the elves' blades that they have, which were specifically used way back when to kill goblins, are now being taken by the goblins because they don't like what's going on. So they end up escaping. Beforehand, though, you're also introduced to another character, and his name is Gollum. Well, if you've seen Lord of the Rings movies, or if you've read the Lord of the Rings books, Gollum comes into play a lot more throughout the series rather than just in this book. So Gollum was hidden away in this stuck, cave and everything like that within the goblins, and Bilbo encounters him, and they play riddle games so Bilbo can escape, everything like that, right? So as that situation plays out, Gandalf comes to the rescue again. He always disappears when it seems to be in the face of danger, and then reappears when they need help saving. So it's a really good book, because honestly, you don't know if it's going to end there or what's going to go on. But as they make their way to the castle, they encounter other situations like an enchanted dark forest that they have to go to, and also a small fishing town that they kind of hold up in. And they also kind of use that as their base of operations because it's close. It's the closest inhabited space to the castle, right? And there's kind of at the end of the book, there's a huge situation that happens at the end. So basically, what happens is they go to the castle. They try to, get to Smog, which is the dragon. Bilbo tries talking to the dragon, and he unveils his weak spot to Bilbo, and then Smog kind of goes out and burns the lake town in rage. And basically, there's other characters that are kind of introduced later on that kind of helps. That kind of helps out with Smog and trying to deal with him. And his name is Bard, and he's an archer. So he actually ends up killing Smog for them. And then here's where it kind of goes. It gets really exciting. Like, this is kind of the climax of the story. The dragon's dead, which means the dwarves want all their gold. They want their castle back. But there is other things and other different people who also want that. So basically, the elves and the goblins find out that their castle is now up for grabs, and there's a huge army of goblins that comes down from the mountain. They actually have to, the dwarves and Bilbo and Gandalf, they have to band together to defeat them. And then the humans came, then the elves came, and then they all united together to defeat the goblins so that they could, be triumphant. And then here is one of, I think, the best parts of the book is that another person that kind of is mentioned a little bit in the book, his name is Borin. He's a shapeshifter. He comes riding in on eagles and actually helps kill all the goblins. Really cool part of the book. And that after that happened, the dwarves were able to get their castle back. Gandalf and Bilbo return to Bilbo's small town. He's respectable by his people. He's respected. He actually really likes to talk to elves and wizards now. And basically, out of his grand adventure that happens, he's home, he's peaceful, and this kind of opens up the book to even more adventures later down the road. So this was The Hobbit. Really good book, and I hope you guys have a chance to check it out.